Welcome to the Way We See It podcast.
where we talk about politics, social justice, and culture.
I'm Tati,
And I'm Ariana.
and we are your host of this podcast. Welcome back, everybody. This is the Way We See It podcast. I wonder how many times I've said that already at this point, that exact line. This is episode 55. We are pre-recording this week. If you listen to our last episode that came out yesterday, because yesterday was Sunday, for MLK Day, which is today. So yeah, we're pre-recording this because Ariana's going away. She's gonna be partying this weekend, so we're not gonna see each other until next week after she gets back. But yeah, this is episode 56. Only 4 more episodes until the season is over. But if you're new, hi, welcome. I'm Tatiana, and this is Ariana.
Hello.
And you could check out our socials. We're on Instagram and Twitter at The Way We See It with a C. You can also find us on YouTube if you're not watching us there. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever. But if you want visuals, we're on YouTube, also at The Way We See It with a C. And if you're watching, make sure you like, comment, share, and subscribe. And hit that bell button so you can notify when a new video drops every week. And also, if you're having trouble finding anything from our podcast, whether it's for our website, our YouTube, or any of our social media, you can always type us in on Google and you'll find us first thing. So, yeah, guys, let's get into this week's topic. So, like I said, if you listen to the last episode, we talked about Martin Luther King Jr. for Martin Luther King Jr. Day, which is today, January 17th. And we were talking more about the things that we learned in school when it came to MLK. So the basics, his timeline, ada. But before we recorded, Ariana was like, I remember, I've heard different like things about MLK and how he did like maybe rape and other things. And how he wasn't assassinated, he was smothered in his sleep. So I was like, huh? I heard maybe about one of them, like him cheating on his wife, but like not that other stuff. So that's what we're getting into in this week's episode: the truth and conspiracy theories about MLK.
Yeah. So, this episode is going to be a mix of actual facts, but then also conspiracy theories, and we'll let you guys know what is what. But why do we want to talk about this? Well, like Tati said in our last episode, it's basically like the version of Martin Luther King history that has been taught for years and years in the education system. And in this episode, we will highlight what is not widely known about MLK. And some of the things we are going to highlight are going to be shocking. But this is not to discredit his legacy. In my opinion, I'm pretty sure Tati agrees that he still had a big impact on American history, and I give him a lot of props. And he did a lot for racial inequality, and he tried to fight for other things, which we'll get into. But I'm not discrediting, or we're not discrediting his legacy. I still give him respect.
Warning.
Before anybody comes at me.
Don't cancel her, okay? She did nothing to you, okay? This is the Way We See It podcast. This is just the way we see it. Punto. That's it. All right. And why did you want to talk about this specifically, though?
I thought I just said it.
Did you? I thought you were just saying it just to say it.
Oh no, yeah. That was like my why. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So disregard that.
Now, how about you? Why do you want to talk about this?
Just from when you had mentioned like the small stuff, it got me thinking, especially as I was doing the research before. It started coming to my mind like some brief things I remember hearing in high school, like my senior year, which was now like 3 years ago. But we're not going to talk about that. And it got me thinking, like, was that true or am I bugging? Like, Am I being delusional right now? I don't remember, but I didn't feel like looking into it in that moment because it didn't have to do with what we were discussing. So then when you pointed it out, I thought it'd be a very interesting topic, and I felt like the audience would enjoy it as well.
Yeah, so let's get right into it. So first, we're gonna get into like how Martin Luther King was more than just fighting for racial equality. This is something that we said in our last episode, that that's what he's widely known. That's what the education system pushes. And a lot of the people today, because it's MLK Day, been posting like quotes that have to do with like racial equality, because that's what he's known for. That's what like the media pushes. But there's other things that the media does not push. But if you follow on Instagram, you will see that we posted quotes that had to do with other things that are not about racial equality. So for example, like he advocated for universal health care and distribution of wealth for all races. So here's a quote that he stated on March 25th, 1966, where he speaks about the injustices in healthcare. So this is the quote: "Of all the forms of inequality, injustice in healthcare is the most shocking and inhumane." Anything you have to say about that?
I don't know why, but just hearing that, it low-key reminded me of Bernie Sanders.
Oh,
I feel like this is something that I've heard Bernie Sanders talk about whenever I did see him, like always talking about healthcare. I know it doesn't have to do with MLK, but that's the first thing that came to mind when I heard that. Also, I really feel bad for anybody who's watching us for the first time, because they're probably looking at me like, this bitch is like, what is she even saying? Like, she's annoying. Get her away from my screen. I'm so sorry.
If you don't want to watch, you don't want to watch. Simple.
What's it called? I'm on edge since the whole Kyle episode. I'm like, hello, not hello. I don't know. The second thing I was thinking about when you said that was March 25th, 1996. I don't know if you watched like
1966.
You know how 1966, my bad. Sometimes on the news, like if it's a historical date, of like, oh, today is Monday, January 17th. Today, a few years ago, here are some monumental events that happened on this day throughout our history, and they'll say whatever events. I feel like I've heard about that day with MLK for some reason, because I always pay attention to everything within my birthday week. And the 26th is the day before my birthday. Also off topic. And then the third thing is, of all the forms of inequality, injustice in healthcare is the most shocking and inhumane. I do agree with that. Wow. Sorry. It's just so funny because I'm listening to myself and I'm like anybody that doesn't know me is like, bro, come on. And then everybody that does know me is like, Tati, classic Tati, because we're here talking about this. But I do agree with that though. Like, there's injustice everywhere, especially in the healthcare system. There's injustice in the education system, jobs. Like, we see it all the time. But I think the thing that makes healthcare so like important in a way, especially when it comes to inequality and how this affects like people of color and Black people and whoever else, is because like at the end of the day, this is something my dad used to point out to me too growing up, is that there's certain sicknesses that like sometimes that white people would never have that a Black person would have, or something like that.
Or less
like,
likely, or most likely, like sickle cell.
Yeah, exactly that. Because my dad has sickle cell, and what's it called? So, well, he has the gene. He has the gene for sickle cell. So, it's like things like that. Like, each race and nationality, I guess, has its own health that may be more severe in some cases, depending on it, I guess. But at the end of the day, it's your health. So obviously you would want to be taken care of properly when you're going to the doctor, the hospital, whatever, and not just pushed to the side because you're not up there in the list or you're not that important, when at the end of the day you just trying to be healthy and to survive, So what are your thoughts and opinions on that quote?
I agree with Dr. King with this quote, and it made me think of like COVID. And this is something that we said on the podcast before, that this whole pandemic has shown like the inequality in the healthcare system, because it was in this pandemic, it was mostly like Black and brown people that died from it. And it's not because of it's a like a gene, of the person being Black or brown, but it's because of the lack of access to healthcare.
That too.
Yeah.
Good point, Addie. I didn't even notice that. Guys, I'm all comfy in bed today. I've had a long day at work. Don't mind me. Okay. Here's another quote from MLK about economic equality that was stated in his speech to the Negro American Labor Council in 1961. And he said, call it democracy or call it democratic socialism, but there must be a better distribution of wealth within this country for all God's children. That is, I mean, he's not wrong there, like that's basically what we just said. Like, it shouldn't matter what your skin color is or where you're from. Even now, like with sexuality, it shouldn't matter where you come from. Everybody should have access to these sorts of things. And this low-key makes me think about, I watched this movie recently with my BF, and it's called Tick Tick Boom. It's on Netflix. I don't know if you've seen it, Adi, but they point out a time where AIDS became a real like crazy like thing among the LGBTQ plus community. And that's when there was a like lack of medicine for it, and not many people were surviving, and like it was very bad. So that's what that low-key reminds me of also. Continuing, another quote MLK stated in 1964 in his Nobel Peace Prize address was, there is nothing new about poverty. What is new, however, is that we have the resources to get rid of it. Damn. I wonder how long he practiced these lines and like thought of them. That was the Holy Spirit coming out, because he was a pastor.
Yeah. Yeah. He like his the way he formulated his like words, or I don't know if he like planned his speeches or like it was just freestyle, but his words are like everything like flows. Like his speeches, like different places that he spoke at, like everything just like flowed.
Yeah. He definitely did not freestyle it. Maybe if he was feeling it, maybe he would add a little shabazz in there. But he definitely rehearsed this. But as he was writing it down, it's just like, wow, he was feeling it as he was writing it down. Because he's not wrong. Like that, I feel like that's gonna be my line for this whole episode. He's not wrong.
Yeah, and it still applies today. Like we see that the gap gets bigger every year. The richer get richer, and the poor get poor.
Yeah. And there's a lot of people still in denial about that, but we're not talking about that in this episode. So, to fight against poverty for all races, MLK created the Poor People's Campaign in the spring of 1968. The purpose of the political campaign was to address the employment and housing problems of the poor throughout the U.S. MLK and the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, also known as the SCLC, had planned to do a Poor People's March to Washington, D.C. to influence Congress and the federal executive branch to take action about employment and housing. MLK was then assassinated in April 1968 during the planning stages of the march. The march was then led by Ralph Abernathy on June 19, 1968.
Yeah, which we'll get into. Like, it's kind of little, it could be a coincidence or not, the fact that he was assassinated when he was planning this the poor people's march campaign.
I didn't review the document before, guys, because I wanted to be surprised with you as we like learn juicy details and whatnot. So I wanted you guys to get a peer reaction. So continuing, okay. MLK also had opinions about war and capitalism. As we stated in our previous episode, while MLK was fighting for racial equality, the Vietnam War was happening during this time. I did see something briefly about him speaking on the Vietnam War. Here's a quote MLK stated about the Vietnam War in 1968. He said, "The U.S. government is the greatest purveyor of violence in the world. A nation that continues year after year to spend more money on military defense than on programs of social uplift is approaching spiritual death. Wow.
Wow is right. Wow.
I'm reading that and just that first line. Was it the first line? No, the second sentence. A nation that continues year after year to spend more money on military defense than on programs to socially and just benefit any American in this nation. Wow. And have you ever seen those TikToks that say, oh, how do you know that you live in like the best country or or like and everybody, I don't know, it's something along those lines, like what's like the best thing about you living where you live? And they're like, oh, I left America where all your taxes just goes to the government and the military and all this other stuff, but over here, like, your taxes actually goes to like helping people and what's it called, like the payments for healthcare and everything are like not overly expensive.
You remember?
They were talking about
obviously other countries.
I believe one was Germany, another one was in France, I believe. More in the Europe areas.
Definitely people from other countries, they look at us and laugh.
No, yeah. I've seen also people from England also say that. But then it also makes me think like, yeah, they may have those benefits in those ways, but then they also have less rights for themselves at the same time. Like, whether it's LGBTQ, women, things like that. So, and sometimes depending on the parts. I mean, there's racism everywhere, but you know what I'm saying. So that's something that comes to mind too. But he's not wrong here.
He's not wrong. And like it still applies today. Like we see, you can look it up. And we said on this podcast before of how much money goes to wars. When we were talking about Israel. I remember.
Oh yeah.
I don't remember the exact number, but
yeah,
a lot of taxes go to weapons.
But think like America, to be an American sometimes, I swear. Like, I don't even know how to formulate my words right now. I feel it in my heart. I know the words I want to say. I just don't know how to say it. But basically, it's just like, it's so true. Like, there's so many things in this world that needs more attention than freaking like little things. It's like them paying more attention on abortion laws. Like, let's just say that as an example. Compared to like, they'll focus more on abortion laws versus like gun laws. Let's just say that. Like gun laws that are affecting the death of millions and thousands of Americans every day. Yeah. So, and killing kids before they're even able to live their life. Mm-hmm. So like, they'll focus on those things rather than even focusing on where they should actually be putting their money, rather than putting it into the government's pockets and for the military and the government and all that stuff. And it's like, the people that are in the army and the military, they don't even get paid shit either. They get hella benefits.
Yeah, a lot of benefits.
But they don't get paid.
They get free school and stuff, but
they get no money.
It's not that good. They be trying to like convince. I remember like in high school, the army people would come. They would be trying to convince people to join them. You had that in your school?
All the time, especially when I moved upstate, it was like never ending. The second you give them your phone number, your email, they would not stop contacting you. It's like you're in there for life until you finally say yes. Like, Jesus, no.
In the lunch cafeteria.
Yo, ROTC kids down there with their flags. I'm like, okay. I remember on my graduation day, I know there was ROTC kids in my school, but then on graduation day, when my when my principal like ask the students that were going to the army or military to stand up. Like half my class did on both the girls and guys side. I was like, damn, that head's going away to the reserves and everything. Like, um, I mean, good for them, but still, um, I couldn't. I was trying to. My boyfriend was like, think about all the benefits I could get us. I was like, you're not going to the army. You're staying your ass here. We have things to do over here.
And I can see why people may choose that route. Some people don't
Of
have
course.
family or like financial support, but I give props to people. We're not discrediting for you,
No,
serving.
yeah. Everybody has their reasoning, which I totally get. Um, and at the same time, like you really do look at the army and the military. This is not me being a hater, guys. Don't be mistaken, because I see them traveling and going. Like once you leave the reserves and you find your base, which you can also change once your contract is done. You're having like the time of your life at the same time. I just like, for me personally, I think that's my dad's way of thinking that got stuck into my head. It would just have to be a true last resort for me, because I feel like at the same time, even though there's so many limitations here in America, there's also a lack of limitations. Like you could do anything you put your mind to. Literally, you want to be a TikToker? Go get that money, honey. You make enough TikToks, you're gonna get TikTok famous. Okay. Literally anything like that you put your mind to, you could definitely do it here in America, and there's always a way. You just have to believe in yourself and in the outcome. So never say never. But it's just crazy that he even says that, and it's true. You had said anti-war under there.
Yeah, so like the quote that Tati said earlier about him talking about the Vietnam War and how the government continues to spend lots of money on the war instead of like on social programs. It shows that he was like against like war, like he's anti-war or anti spending a lot of money on these wars.
Does this maybe have to do with him resulting more towards like peaceful protests and everything, like the Gandhi way, I guess? Yeah. Maybe.
Mm-hmm. I would say
because I saw something about I don't know if Gandhi was alive during his time period. I don't remember. Or maybe he just went based off of Gandhi, which was just this is just an assumption, guys. Warning. Okay.
I'm gonna look it up real quick. When did Gandhi die?
Yeah. Because I know like he did focus more on peaceful protests rather than violent.
Gandhi died in 1948.
Oh yeah. So Gandhi was, they were not friends yet. But yeah, continuing. Here's a quote of MLK's opinion on capitalism. Capitalism does not permit an even flow of economic resources. With this system, a small privileged few are rich beyond conscience, and almost all others are doomed to be poor at some level. That's the way the system works. And since we know the system will not change the rules, we are going to have to change the system. Wow, you got some nice things, Adi. Like, I've never heard these quotes in my life, but I'm living for it.
Yeah, this is why we're making this podcast, because a lot of people don't know about this. It's easy for people to just see what the media posts and what we learn in school, which is something that we easily fall into without even thinking about it.
Exactly. But wow, MLK, you are a man. I'm telling you. And let's also define what capitalism is real quick for the children that may not know. So, in simple terms, capitalism is often thought as an economic system in which private actors own and control property in accord with their interests, and demand and supply freely set prices in markets in a way that can serve the best interests of society. The essential feature of capitalism is the motive to make a profit. That's just
capitalism is kind of what, like, how America works economically.
Yeah, this is the capitalism country. Yeah. Freaking had a whole fit, and not whole fit. Let me correct my words before the government comes for me. There was a whole chapter on capitalism and communism that I went through multiple years of high school. I still don't understand what the big thing was about it. Maybe I just wasn't paying attention. I don't know. But all I know is that America was like, F communism. We're not communist. Capitalism. I'm like, hurrah! That was it. But I also know there's such a huge downside to it at the same time.
And the government likes capitalism because it benefits them. They're the 1%, and we just, bottom.
They didn't want us to know that back then. But now it's 2022. We know it. We can't help it. And overall thoughts. Why do we only hear about one aspect of MLK? Ooh, good question.
Yeah. So like the one aspect is how MLK is known for like being a civil rights leader. That's what's pushed in schools, mainstream media. And I think it's, for the most part, the one aspect we hear is because it's just easy for people to understand, or most people to agree that racism is wrong,
Mm-hmm.
But for the other parts, talking about economic equality, universal health care, capitalism, employment, housing, anti-war, those are things that not everybody really agrees on. So, and they don't want like the mainstream or a lot of people from society to know about those things, because then people are going to revolt or like be more aware of those things and be aware of the injustices in those different systems.
Yeah, the government and the media love to control what we have access to, whether you believe it or not. Because honestly, if you have a thought come to mind, the chances of you finding it on the internet are possible, but then the media really makes it so you have to be very specific with your words in order to find whatever you're looking for. So probably they're just mixing everything, but it's also not something that you're going to hear about often. Because I agree with you, because when I hear about MLK, I'm thinking about someone who just spoke about for civil rights in America and fought against segregation and discrimination in the U.S. Simple. Yeah. That's what I learned for a majority of my life until they got into bigger terms as I got into high school. But even then, it was just the same thing.
Yeah.
Before, just with some slight changes. But seeing this stuff, it is interesting to see. And why is his fight for universal healthcare distribution of wealth and his opinions about war not widely known? I think basically for what you had said.
Yeah, just like I said before, it's just easy for a lot of the people to agree on that racism is wrong. And that's something that a lot of people get. But the other things is something that not everybody agrees on. So yeah, if you notice, like, I don't know, you probably don't because you study the social media, but like today, like a lot of like politicians are posting quotes about MLK because today's MLK Day. And I saw a post at one of pages we follow on our Instagram page. We're showing like all these white politicians posting like quotes about MLK, but they also have other things like showing them holding a Confederate flag or them speaking against like
damn, Ariana, you were looking on their pages.
No, it came up on our feed.
Their pages though?
Like this Instagram page we follow was calling out the white politicians saying that they support MLK, but like they found like other tweets about them saying like one of them was holding a Confederate flag, or some of them like speaking about voting rights, which is something was talked about like during the last election and stuff. So now like you saying you support MLK, but then you also believe in these other things.
Yeah. Snappy, snappy, snap your fingers with me, everybody. Now, pop, 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 pop. Wow. At first, I thought you were saying that like we follow those politicians.
No.
And you saw them make MLK posts. You're like, oh, let me look at their pages, and then you see guns, Confederate flag, da da da. You're like, Dios mío, no, this is not right.
No. It was a page calling out those people. I don't know the page, but it was a page that did that. Shout out to them.
All right, you can read the next one.
Okay, now we gonna get a little spicy now.
Yeah. I'm ready.
So the FBI did do investigation against MLK on August 30th, 1963, 2 days after the March on Washington, that's when MLK did the I Have a Dream
I
speech.
have a dream.
The FBI wrote a memo against MLK stating, "We must mark him now as the most dangerous Negro in the future of this nation." And there's you can look it up, that memo's out there. And the somebody from the FBI wrote that memo to start an investigation on him. So in response, the FBI agreed to investigate MLK from 1963 to 1965. And during this time, MLK, he didn't have no idea that he was being surveillance. And they observed during the investigation that he was friends with a communist. And we all know that the United States doesn't like communism, like Tati said before. And he was friends with a communist. His name was Stanley Levinson. And well, if you don't know what communist means, it's when the government owns everything and is responsible for providing equality for all. So because they thought, because MLK was friends with a communist, a known communist, they believed, the FBI believed that MLK was also a communist. So they
You see, I didn't even have to read this part to. Once capitalism was mentioned, I was like, America and capitalism is like they go so hard for it, because I swear that I don't want to say there was a war about capitalism versus communism, but there probably was. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So no wonder the FBI of America is going dumb hard on MLK, who's not only black, but maybe a communist. Yeah.
Yeah. So even though there wasn't direct evidence that they found that showed that he was communist, but just because he was friends with this person, they believed, and that's how they started an investigation. And they ended up finding some things that had nothing to do with the purpose of the case. So during the FBI's investigation to prove MLK was a communist, they discovered some interesting things that had to do with the purpose of the investigation. So one of the main things they found is that the FBI taped MLK's phone, they wired his phone and found out he had extramarital affairs. So we all know that MLK was married to Coretta and they had 4 kids together, but the FBI will
Mrs. Coretta.
the FBI would spy what hotels he would stay in as he traveled to do advocacy around the US, and they will place recording devices in the hotel rooms that he was sleeping. And I need to take a breath before I say this, because it's about to get crazy. So FBI found MLK had sexual affairs with over 40 women and had 3 long-term affairs with 3 different women.
Damn, you said you needed a breather, and I didn't even read the next bullet point. I was like, for what? I went to go look at it right when you said it. I was like, damn. Damn.
So that's what the FBI found. We don't know if the FBI made this up or this is true, but they said they have the audio recordings, whatever, because they went deep.
His phone calls?
His phone calls, and they will put recording devices in the hotel rooms he was staying. They will stalk him that bad, they will know what room he was staying in the hotels. And allegedly, the FBI also found that MLK was also an accomplice to a sexual assault, and supposedly he was a witness to a sexual assault situation, and he didn't do anything to stop it, allegedly. And this last thing is, I think it's the most shocking. So the FBI sent audio tape and letter to MLK's home where his family lived, including his wife, Coretta. And they sent this audio tape and letter while MLK was away doing advocacy work. And she listened to the audio tape and read the letter. And the audio tape was a recording of well, they say it's 2 people having sex, but it could be that one person, it could be MLK.
Nah, let the FBI come to my door and send me a audio of my man having sex with another woman. Not only will my man get it, But the FBI, because that's disrespectful, because you tapping into my life. This is why I have my post-it over my computer camera at all times. I don't trust nobody. That's OD.
Yeah, that's OD. Like, they was
That's
not
so
playing.
messed up, but that's OD.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, she has the right to know at the end of the day, because, you know, that is her husband. Like, thank you for letting me know. But then they just, I don't know how they did. They either handed it to her or plopped it at her door.
They did it anonymously, but it was later found that it was the FBI that sent it because they had a copy of what they sent to the house. So, but at the time, like, nobody knew. Coretta didn't know. King didn't know where this stuff came from.
Yee! Okay, continue. I
So now,
got goosey
so
bumps.
now we know what the audio tape was. Basically a sex tape. Now we're gonna get into like what the letter said. So the letter like blackmailed MLK to end his life or he will be exposed. And you can look it up. The letter's out there. And I'm just gonna read some quotes what the letter said, and it's kind of mean.
Let me do it. Let me do it.
Okay, yeah, Tati, read the quotes.
You are finished. You will find on the record for all time your filthy, dirty, evil companions, males and females, giving expression with you to your hideous abnormalities. It is all there on record, your sexual orgies. Was male and female?
Yeah, I peeped that too.
Gas.
It was the
Audience gas.
exploration.
Oh, the pastors. Pastor. That's what I was thinking about before. What did I say about the pastor before a few minutes ago? I said, oh, that was the Holy Spirit tapping in. The Holy Spirit was not tapping out in his bedroom. Man, Lord forgive me for my sins for the words that are coming out of my mouth. But towards the end of the letter, the FBI states there is only one thing left for you to do. You have 34 days. There is only one way out for you. Imagine the FBI threatening me about my life.
Yeah.
Kill myself for it. I'm coming for you.
Yeah, so that was a few quotes from the letter.
I wonder if the FBI still does that.
I don't know, but I feel like this is unethical. Like, first of all, like the purpose of the case was to find out if he was a communist or not. But now you're just taking advantage and just finding and just investigating of him having sex with different women and I guess men too.
Yeah. But because now at this point,
being a communist, like,
yeah, but at this point now, like, even though he's a advocate for like all these different things, he's basically now a politician. Like, this is something that could still, this is something that social media managers and anybody that basically manages you with, yeah, because like you don't want the public to know certain things about you. It could end your reputation. It could ruin it. And this is the last thing that they needed. So the FBI is not used for ruining people's reputations. That's not the point of the FBI. For that, we have paparazzi.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, continuing.
Yeah, so that's basically like the gist of what the FBI found. Now we don't really know like this is true or not. Like, yes, it has it like on their FBI reports, but supposedly like the actual audio tapes of the alleged affairs are now sealed, but they will be released to the public in 2027 by the FBI.
Wait, 2027?
Yeah. I guess the FBI waits like a long time before they like release the stuff to the public. But if this stuff was true, like I said before we got into it, I still respect MLK like what all he has done. And I do agree with a lot of like his stuff, not just about racial equality, but the other stuff he spoke on. But you know, he's a womanizer too, you know? If this stuff is true.
I mean, if he had a way with words to change civil rights and just change history for black and whites and people of color and minorities everywhere in America, then he definitely has a way with words of getting people into bed. He's a fine man. That's all I'm gonna say. So now getting into conspiracy theories of MLK's death. So what we know is that MLK was shot and killed by James Earl Ray on April 4th, 1968 in Memphis, Tennessee. Right. Okay. So the first one is the government was behind MLK's assassination because they no longer agreed with what MLK was fighting for. So that being poverty, healthcare, anti-war, etc. You know, America. So is it a coincidence that he was killed right before the Poor People's Campaign March? What do you think?
I think it is a coincidence. Like I wouldn't be surprised if the government was behind his death. Like the government, the president gave him the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act and stuff. But after he like started to preach about other things that had to do with racial inequality. That's when the FBI investigation started, and they did it right before the Poor People's Campaign, which was about an employment and housing for all races, which is, I don't think the government wanted that, because then they would have to like equally distribute wealth, which American government is not for. So
the next question you put too was crazy. Sorry, am I delayed on your side?
No.
Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off then. What was the last thing you said?
No, I was just ending it off. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if the government was behind his death.
Yeah, and I just read the last bullet point that you wrote, which was, why didn't the FBI know that MLK was going to be assassinated if they surveillance MLK 24/7? So right, so true. I'm like, there was really a time in my life where I still kind of do to an extent. I don't know. I haven't really thought about it as much as I used to when I was younger, but I believe the government, there's so many things on the low, like to the point when I was younger, when I was like 13, let me not say 14. 14 is like the age where everybody's like, no, you're supposed to be logical. So 13, let's just say, was the time when I was like, okay, I'm really into science. Let me become a scientist, but like focus on research about the supernatural, because there's definitely things here in America or outside that focus on that and supernatural. I'm like, what if I created a supernatural being? What if I was able to make humans werewolves and stuff like that? But this has a purpose, guys. I thought that because the government hides so much shit, like, wasn't it until 2020 when they finally said that Area 51 was real and that anybody that came near it was going to get shot up or something like that? It was a whole big thing because that's where the aliens are.
Mm-hmm.
And look, aliens are real. They said the aliens are real. And I will never forget the day I saw a UFO in New York. And upstate New York, they probably abducted somebody because I saw that thing disappear. Crazy stuff. Crazy. So if they're able to do those things and hide those things and more, like, there's so many conspiracy theories. Like, I was gonna say like the Loch Ness monster, but Nessie's not in America. That's in Europe, I believe.
I haven't heard about that one.
You never heard of the Loch Ness monster? What? Where have you been? Nessie is like the creature that lives in the water that's like related to dinosaurs.
I haven't heard about that.
What? You need to look into it after this episode. So I would not be surprised if MLK, if this was planned by the FBI or like just the government. So then continuing, number 2, second theory is that MLK was not shot and killed by James Earl Ray. Oh, so he was killed by James Earl Ray, but just not shot? Is that what you were saying?
No. This second conspiracy theory is saying that he was not shot and killed by James Earl Ray. Instead, he was smothered in the hospital, but the theory doesn't say who was he smothered by in the hospital.
Oh, okay. So in 2020, there was a viral Instagram and Facebook post going around stating MLK was not killed by a gunshot wound. Instead, he was smothered in the hospital. This conspiracy theory stems from James Earl Ray's attorney to prove Ray's innocence. but there is no direct evidence he was killed at the hospital. The autopsy report states King died from a gunshot wound. And then the photo below of MLK was taken on September 20th, 1958, when MLK was stabbed in New York City. This was a decade before MLK was killed.
And I'll put the post if you're watching on YouTube, I'll put a picture of the post that went viral, and you'll see in the picture, if you're watching on YouTube, is him in the hospital.
Maybe.
But that wasn't a picture from when he died or when he was about to die. That was from 10 years before he died.
Here's my conspiracy theory from the two. You ready? What if? I was going to say I believe the first one more than the second.
Me too.
But then what if he was shot and was sent to the hospital and they were able to save him? But then because they were trying to kill him, that's why he was smothered in the hospital. So like, what if the guy who shot him, maybe he was the one that shot him, but he wasn't intending to kill him. It was just to maybe get him out of the way, whatever, just harm him, or maybe that person didn't shoot him at all. Maybe he was actually telling the truth and he was innocent and it was somebody else. What if it was one of the FBI agents that shot him instead? And either way, something happened. He didn't die, and he was sent to the hospital that night. Regardless, because that's where he has to go to get his autopsy. And they were able to save him, or he was showing signs of consciousness, and they killed him.
And also, by the way, it was the FBI that investigated the murder of or the assassination of MLK. They're the one that did the investigation, like, while he was alive.
They could definitely cover shit up
because he was a communist, and then they also did the investigation to find out who assassinated him after he died. So
they could have covered it up. Wow, this is a very good episode. I'm very excited for the public to hear this. Oh yeah. I hope you guys enjoyed this because I'm shook.
Yeah, I'm still shook. History.
I don't even know what I think. I don't know. I'm probably gonna think about it when I have my dance practice later. Man.
That's a lot to take in. A lot. Like, I kind of feel
it's when you think you know the truth, but you know nothing.
Yeah.
It's all an illusion. That's why I say watch The Matrix, Ariana.
One day I will. One day.
By the way, guys, watch The Matrix because the last movie just came out like after 20 freaking years. The final movie came out, so we lit. But do you have any final thoughts that you want to say before we end?
I hope you all there listening or watching enjoyed this episode. We enjoyed talking about it. It was very interesting. Hopefully you learn more about MLK than what you were taught in school or through the mainstream media. And yeah, hopefully it makes you think and reflect about MLK.
Yeah, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this week's episode. I definitely did enjoy it. I am really kind of shook right now. I probably won't have any further thoughts maybe until the next following episode. I'll write them down if they do come to mind. I'm just really thinking about it because I'm trying to think about it. I don't know. But hope you guys enjoyed it. And we'll see you guys next week with a new episode. So peace. Stay safe.